Today I'm going to show you how to wash wool. Here are the supplies that you will need. First, you're going to need containers to wash your wool in. I use these kitty litter boxes and lingerie bags. This setup is the kitty litter boxes that come with the sifting screens. You're going to want to have a minimum of 2 of these so that you can sandwich the wool in between each screen to prevent it from being overly worked or overly agitated. You can also use these lingerie bags. These are helpful. You can just unzip them, put the wool inside, zip it back up, and it helps keep the wool together when you move them from one container to another to rinse. The other things you're going to need is a lot of hot water. With the hot water, I use these electric kettles, but pretty much a pot, a regular kettle, anything that you can basically boil water in will also work. The reason I use hot water is to remove the lanolin from the fibers. To assist in that, I also use soap. So I have 3 different types of soap that I use when washing wool. The first is Dawn dish soap. The next is Orvis livestock paste. This one's in a smaller container, makes it easier to use, as well as this new soap that I have called Unicorn Power Scour. If you're using the Dawn dish soap, this is a very sudsy soap, so you will have to rinse your fibers very thoroughly to make sure to get all those suds out. The livestock or Orvis paste is an interesting soap, as in when it's in a cold environment, it's in this solid white state. And when it's in a warm, if it's kept in a warm area, it's actually gelatinous goo. You can use it in either state, but if you wash your fleece with it in this caked state or solid state, you are going to want to make sure that all of the soap is dissolved. Otherwise, it will cling to your fibers and make it rinsing difficult. Now, this new soap, the Unicorn Power Scour, is really nice because it's actually designed for washing wool or wool products. It even says on the bottle, removes lanolin, which is very helpful. Depending on which fleeces I wash, I'll use these interchangeably. Once your wool is washed, rinsed, and ready to be dried, I love using these little IKEA storage basket net thingies. These are great because you can literally just take the wet fiber, put it into the little cubby holes, and the mesh surrounding it allows for good airflow to allow for your fibers to dry. So here's all the things that we need. Now that we have it, we're going to grab our fleece and start washing. All right, so here's the fleece that we are going to be washing today. This is a Navajo Chiro fleece. So it actually has these long guard hairs, as well as the wool layer underneath. So when looking at this fleece, what we're going to want to do is actually break it up into various parts so that it's easy to wash. So I'm going to kind of fluff it and find an edge here. Now, if we look at this fleece, you can kind of see how there's like rows of locks. See that? So what you're going to want to do, you can even see it on the other side too. See these rows of locks. See, one here, one here, one here, one here. What you're going to want to do is actually break this up into their individual lock forms. So this fleece is rather easy. I can just take a section, grab a hold of the long curly guard hairs and give it a tug like that. So this is a lock. This is what we want. And what we're going to do with these is line our kitty litter box or gently place them inside the lingerie bags. So I'm first going to collect the locks. So I'm going to take this and put it aside and go ahead and grab a couple more. One thing you want to be careful with, if you see this, how it's all no longer in a clump anymore, it's kind of spread out and fluffy. This type of fiber is more likely to felt than your fiber that is still in lock form. See the difference? This is all smooshed together, where this is all free flowy. So if you have bits like this, just be very careful as to how much you handle it. When washing fleeces, basically you only need 3 things to create felt. That's hot moisture, heat, and agitation or pressure. So it's very easy for this to become a gross mat, which if you're felting is great, but if you're not, that's not so great. So if you get a piece, sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually set these aside and wash them in a separate batch so that it doesn't, so I know that it won't mat. So I'm actually going to put that aside. All right. So once all the locks are separated from each other and in a nice orderly fashion, we can start putting them into our lingerie bags or into our kitty litter boxes. Now that we've collected all of our locks, I'm going to show you how to put them into your kitty litter screen. When you're using the kitty litter screen, I like to put the locks in all going the same direction. So I'm going to make sure that all of my locks go with the tip facing this direction. So I'm just gonna load those guys up, just like so. And I would continue to fill this kitty litter screen until all of the locks pretty much cover, so I can't really see the mesh anymore. When washing with this kitty litter screen, I only use 1 layer. If you have multiple layers, it takes longer for it to get clean, or it takes additional wash or rinse cycles. So 1 layer works the best. Okay. This is what you want your screen to look like when it's ready to be washed. Okay, so today we're washing our wool outside. This will make getting rid of the dirty water a lot easier, as I can just throw it onto my lawn and not have to worry about it. If you do have to wash your fleece indoors, I recommend taking your dirty water and dumping it outside, as pouring it down your drains can cause your drains to clog if you wash wool a lot. I have 4 buckets set up. This first bucket will be used for our first initial soak. We're just going to fill it up with regular, slightly warm water and let the wool soak and absorb all that water. That will make the transition from this tub to our hot boiling water soapy tub a lot easier on the fibers, as if you go from a completely dry environment to a wet environment, that can shock the fibers. Wool is actually very absorbent and can hold a lot of water, so by starting off with the fibers wet, when I go to my boiling hot soapy water tub, it will allow the soap to do its job and remove that dirt and remove that lanolin. From this tub, we're going to go to our third tub, which will be our first hot rinse. And by hot, it's not boiling like our wash tub, but just like hot to the touch. And that will help pull the rest of the dirt and the rest of the lanolin out of the fibers, as well as get rid of the soap. From this tub, we're going to our second rinse tub, which will be lukewarm water. And that will get rid of whatever the first rinse didn't get out. And depending on how dirty this water is, we may do additional rinses. Okay, I filled my initial soak bucket to about halfway, and now I'm going to add my fiber. Just going to set it on top of the water and just gently push down to let it soak in. Like so. Now we're going to let this soak for about 5 to 10 minutes. So now I'm going to move my wool from this tote into this tote. Yay. So to take this out, I'm just going to lift it up, tilt it so that the water drains out. Give it a good little shake, and then put it into the other tub. And since this is boiling water, I'm just gonna let it settle all down to the bottom and then press down with the top. So see, there's enough water in there that it's overflowing. And we're gonna let this sit for 15 minutes. It's been about 15 minutes. So now I'm going to move this into our rinse container. If I squish down, you can actually see how dirty that water is. There's a bit of soap scum and lanolin just floating on top. So I'm going to squeeze my 3 containers together, lift up, tilt it so that the water all runs out. With this one, you really want to let a lot of the water run out, as much as possible. Okay. And this is going to go into our rinse bucket. Hope you can see that. Now this has been filled with half hose water and half boiling water. So it's actually it's pretty spicy as far as temperature goes, but not boiling like the other one. And we're going to let this sit for another 15 minutes. Here's what the water looks like after it being washed. As for the wastewater, you just chuck it in the yard. Now this has been sitting for 15 minutes for the rinse. So we're going to go ahead and lift these 3 pans out. Tilt it to let it drain. Again, I want as much water out as possible. But you can still see the soap and some of that extra lanolin floating on top, which is what we definitely want to get out. All right. Then this is going to go into the final rinse. Let this sit here and soak for 15 to 20 minutes. And if this water here is clear, then this will be ready to be pulled out and set aside to dry. It's been 15 minutes. This is hopefully our last rinse. It looks pretty clear from what I'm seeing here. We're gonna go ahead and pull this out. Let it dribble. Oh my goodness, yeah. That's what we want to see. Nice and clean. I'm gonna go ahead and lift this top off so you can see what it looks like. Whoo, look at that. Look how white and clean that is. Isn't it gorgeous? But it's also still very, very wet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to carefully transfer these locks and then show you how I dry it. Okay, I have my nice washed wool. Now what I'm going to do is take these locks and put them into my drying rack. I'll come back and check these in about an hour. Probably give them a turn so that the other sides can dry. And once they're dry, we'll see the end results. Here is the dried, washed wool. You can, by the touch, there's hardly any lanolin to it anymore. It has shrunk a little bit. So this is what it looks like now that it's clean. And here's what it looks like when it was dirty. Here's a dirty lock next to a clean lock. So you can definitely tell that there's a slight color change from a kind of a slight tan color to a very bright white. So now these are ready to be processed further. And that is how you wash wool. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more videos about fiber art or fiber production, please subscribe. Thank you.